The Meetings Act is down the door back there, it's behind that camera, I believe. Care to read it? Roll call, Wyatt.
Here.
Tim. Trent.
Here.
Kristen.
Here.
Victor.
Here.
Myself here. I want to move my president's report down to the last item. I'd like to go, possibly go into closed session, or have a vote to go into closed session at that time, and that way everyone else will go home. So I entertain a motion to just make that one change before we get started.
I'll make a motion that we do your report down with the last item on the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's for first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Consent agenda. Last month's agenda. Approval. Everybody's good. We'll move on to the financial.
You'll notice our CD rates are gonna drop significantly for this next renewal. I did call, talk to Kevin specifically about that. He just said, that's the economy right now, so I'll expect all of those at maturity to drop, as much as a point, half.
So is your interest rates going down? They called you and said your interest rates are what's in
Yeah.
Have it?
Actually, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I got brothers that shop around for mortgage right now. They're looking at 30 years, like in the twos.
Yeah,
2.5.
never been, hadn't been there since the 70s.
Yeah.
So, Ed, you know, speaking of that interest, you notice on your activity report, we've got $37,500 that, you know, accrues from that $1 million in CDs. So, I mean, I know you're aware of that. You know, you have obviously, you earmark that towards different things if you want, or, you know, an ice cream machine with it or whatever. I mean, or it just helps to subsidize athletics or any other accounts in there that run in the red. But
So we always have to add money to those accounts anyway.
we do. So for example, we do budget to subsidize lunch and activities. We did back that out this last month on lunch because we made good money delivering meals in the spring.
So does that have to stay in the lunch account, the money we made by doing
Yes.
lunch?
Yeah.
It has to stay there.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, I mean, what had it been at 2.0, about how much per month were we, $7,000 or so, or in interest?
Probably
Or
about
court-
1,500, yeah, it was, I'd have to go back and look,
Okay.
but yeah, it was.
But that'll go, obviously, that's gonna be cut to about half over
Yeah.
the next maturity, but anyway.
You're way ahead on our percentage. I don't know if that means we're not spending enough money or what.
Well, hang on, we got a month to go.
You got plans?
Well, not really, but.
I'll get busy.
mm.
Just kidding.
Okay, if there's nothing on that, we'll move on to the claims.
New sporting goods, we spent $14,885 on,
That was the pole vault pit that we got the
Okay.
reimbursement check from
Okay.
the insurance company.
Okay, there's one on here for over 5,000. Again, so
Probably wasn't just one item.
probably wasn't one item, but it was one check.
yeah, that's 2 months in a row, so.
Where's that?
It's
Verco?
for- It's for the, yeah.
It's the furniture.
Furniture.
for the art room.
Yeah, so that's new chairs for the art room. The other ones were splitting, kind of like these. and new desks for Mr. Schumacher. Is that right?
I don't know where they're.
I believe.
Still haven't followed, still need to follow your policy.
Well, and I understand, I mean, the policy
So-
does say for individual items, so any individual item of 5,000, but, so, yeah, this is, you know, necessary school furniture, but, so, yeah, I understood.
I mean, and even if it needs something that can't wait till the meeting, just send out a text. I'm sure it's 90% sure it'll be approved, but just
Mhm.
don't like surprises.
So Train found there were some issues with the air conditioning when they did their inspection, or?
Yeah, we didn't actually pay that bill yet, we didn't send that check, it's in the claims, but we didn't send it. Because on the invoice, it just said reset and check, something like check that it works. That whole bill is labor. So I put in a call, he didn't answer, I left a message, he hasn't called back. So we're holding the check until he calls back and tells me, yeah, you know, because that doesn't make sense to me. 8.5 hours of work to reset a system. I mean, I need a little more explanation.
So there wasn't anything wrong with it, it was just,
I don't believe there was anything wrong with it, yeah. So, you know, Gail did sign off on the bill, yes, they were here. But they didn't provide very good information on the invoice.
How's the new system working?
Yeah, very good. The only issue we have is this room right here. The unit the original unit that cools just this room is shot. So there is no air in here. There is no airflow. Now, we can live with, it can be cooled and heated from our hallways, but we are getting an estimate to replace that unit. That sits just about straight up, and it's about, we could replace it with a unit like we put up for the shop. We had Reg come and look at it, Reg Rutt. So, you know, we'll expect some information from him, but it's not something that we need for this cooling season.
so it heats and cools through that, or just cools through that?
Well, I know it cools. Whether that provides heat, I don't think that would provide heat. I think it just cools.
Okay.
But a new one, we could do both.
I just wanted to make sure we're not
Specific to
speaking
this
here.
space. Yeah, we will.
It's been this way for a long time though, correct? The unit's been in or not?
I'm not sure when it went out. I mean, I think just sometime over the summer. I don't remember any
okay.
conversation in the spring that we weren't able to cool.
That was
Of
nice
course, we
for
didn't
this
have any
spring.
cooling season. Nobody was here when we needed to cool the building.
I thought it had been that way for years.
No, but Gail tried to fix the motor. I mean, it was a motor issue, and he worked with All Twines a little bit to see if he could somehow rig it up still to get the motor to work, but it's a 43-year-old unit that's shot, so.
It was pretty much original then.
Yes, it was originally.
It's
yeah.
original. Okay. 43
If you go up on the
It provides
building, it's
service,
by
yeah.
far, it stands out as not only, it's much smaller than the other units, especially the one that we just put up there, but, I mean, it looks like it's got 43 years of weather, you know, to it.
Okay.
So that'll be something we'll have to look at, you know, next summer.
These golf balls, was that for the foundation?
Yeah,
And we will reimburse the school?
We've been reimbursed. Did we get a check for that yet from Brian?
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Good,
We just usually have the school credit card to, it's
yeah.
easier to get it done than.
Any more questions on the claims? Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Also move?
Second.
Second?
First and seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Motion carries. Public comments. Anybody here to talk?
I just had a quick general
Okay.
question.
I gotta read the,
Okay, sorry, I should
Is
say
that important? I'm gonna make him read it.
Clearing out that portion of our agenda set aside for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board will be recognized by the board president Also, each person wishing to address the board will be allowed only one opportunity to do so this evening. We request that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, and we will advise you when that 5-minute time period is elapsed. Please remember this is a public meeting for the conduct of the business of the Plainview Public School District. Offensive language, personal attacks, and hostile conduct will not be tolerated. You should be further advised that there is no legal protection for any comments that are made. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Did you
just
even
general
listen
question.
to that?
Yeah, sorry, I
Listen to
didn't mean to make you.
Reread that?
Repeat that. Sorry. I think that, like, the board, didn't they, back in early spring, grant the superintendent special powers for the whole COVID thing? I was just curious if there was like a moratorium on that, or if that was still in effect, or how that was all panning out. I forget exactly what kind of special powers was granted to him.
What month was that? Do you remember, Eric?
I don't specifically, I was just,
I think it was one of the special powers just to pay the necessary bills without, you couldn't have a meeting.
it might have been,
I
I
don't know if
can't.
there was a sunset date on it, but I'm sure it's not intended to last in perpetuity. But it was primarily, yes, if you have
To pay bills and you could have.
expenses or something along those lines that you can't get a quorum of the board together to make a decision.
Probably last as long as this situation lasts, I would imagine.
Okay, yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
I don't know if there was running into any red flag or anything like that, or I could see a situation where powers would be granted indefinitely or something like that. So I don't know if it was an issue or not.
All right, thanks, Eric. Discussion items, summer maintenance update.
So, everything is pretty much done as expected. They didn't run into, anything too dramatic with the big project in here. The lighting in the weight room was didn't turn out like we wanted once we dropped that ceiling, so we did add a couple of panels on the sides. That was, minimal.
Make a difference, big difference.
It makes a huge difference, yes. It did need it. It was very shadowy around the outside, but just had the inspector, the electrical inspector was really a hard sell. He came in with an attitude and let us know that he was gonna be in charge, and that was fine, and so that didn't go well that day, and it set us back a week, because we had to do some significant work. But our electrician was fabulous. This guy was terrific. I wish we'd have had him for the elementary project a couple years back. He handled it, and he was a pro. So Brian and Keith and Josh, the three main guys, they're just good people, and they do good work, and they have good crews. And so I think we got our money's worth, and we're good to go for well beyond probably our lifetimes. So shop lights, it was a messy job. I went and checked on Jake one day, and that poor old boy, taking down the old lights. Imagine the soot. He looked like he come out of a coal mine. So that was a dirty job for Jake. We did some painting around that. We had talked about it, but we found a para that was willing to spend the better part of a month and just add some cosmetic color to the elementary and down on the football field. And we still want to do the rail up and around the back of the football field, just to kind of highlight that space. And paint is always a cheap way to make something look good and new and fresh. So other than that, a successful summer of some more facility modern.
A little miscalculation on the tiles.
Little miscalculation on the tiles, and a little more cutting than he anticipated, so they had to quick run to Omaha for additional tiles. And you wouldn't have guessed when they came in, there were pallets and pallets and pallets of them. But I guess when you look around, you start counting. A lot of tiles, but those guys do good work. It's amazing to watch them work, so I think folks will be pleased when they come in the building.
Okay, number 9, welcome back dinner for the teachers tomorrow.
So that's our traditional tomorrow night, and the teachers that will be honored according to policy, you know, you have that information. So eat about 6, you know, Mary's cater out. So it looks similar to last year. Mr. Sauser will say a few words, but we kind of let teachers know, and our attendance has been good. I mean, we kind of let them know that this is an honor from the board, and they kind of expect you to show up. So, and why wouldn't you go get a free meal?
And
Not
we'll
have
have
to
to pay
cook.
for our spouses out there, correct?
Yes, pay for your spouse.
Do we know?
So
and
I'll ask
can-
Scott,
Okay.
what, you know, what's the cost of the meal essentially. So, yeah, so we'll let them know their spouses are certainly welcome to come on out. So that's, you know, as early as 5:30, try to eat by 6. So some folks will be ready, you know, they'll probably come back to school more.
So what do we have? Chicken?
So that'll be tomorrow night. I think it's probably chicken. I don't think anybody complains about Vince chicken and macaroni
That
salad.
might come.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, Wyatt better, you get your speech.
I might even send
It's a
that
little bit of a
text.
drive for me to get out there, so I don't know.
Show up in a golf cart.
Okay, number 10, review board policy series 503.
So, you know, as I kind of maybe mentioned a little bit earlier, 503 has a lot of policy with regard to attendance. And so, I mean, I would suggest we just kind of let 50301 just sit. 50302 is good. I mean, that can be reviewed. That's a simple thing. Tammy reports to the state our required necessary attendance, so 50302, we can probably add a review date of today unless you have any questions on that simple language there. 50303, as I read through that too, the language in here is really not very accurate. I don't know that I would recommend new language. I think we're probably wise to not have any policy on student attendance right now. But the language that we'll have to work through with Mrs. Thompson and Mr. Schmidt is excused absences, because the language in paragraph 3 really is not accurate. An excused absence shall count as days in attendance for the purpose of truancy laws. That these absences can include illness, family bereavement. Well, no, if you're ill, you're absent. You know, now the administrators have discretion about who they're going to report to the county attorney for truancy laws. So, I mean, if somebody's ill 30 different days every 3rd day, that's different than if somebody misses 30 days because they had major surgery, right? So principals have great discretion on who they report based on the truancy laws, which is 20 days. If you miss 20 days, you report to the county attorney. So this language probably needs to be looked at. I mean, as far as I've always been concerned, the only time you can miss school and have it not count is when school takes you out of school. You're out of school for a school activity, because you're still technically in school. But if you're absent, period, we count it. But then when you get to 20, you look at those absences. Why did you miss 20? Well, you had a couple of serious illnesses, significant illnesses. You had a couple of bereavements. Grandpa died and you had to go to Arizona, and that was 3 days, whatever. And you look at those things and you consider those, and you determine, is this kid really truant, or just a series of unfortunate events, and they've accumulated the 20 absences. So this is probably something we need to look at, but at this point, heading into this school year, we don't need a policy that we really probably aren't going to follow, depending upon what happens with student attendances and potential quarantines. And, you know, parents we're going to be much more liberal about accepting parents saying, my kid didn't feel good, they're not coming to school. We're not going to question that on anybody. So 50303 can probably just sit without review. I would suggest as 50304, excessive absenteeism. Feel free to jump in, principals, if you'd like. 50305, student release during school hours. This is probably appropriate. I think this is accurate language. You know, we don't really have administrative regs. We release, a parent says, hey, I need my kid to go, or they send a note, or they call, they go. That's the only reg that we need. It's really pretty much a non-issue, but still, it could get a new review date on it as today. And then 50309 is dictated by statute. And this won't change unless statute changes, in which case then our policy service of NASB will send us the new language. So we could add a review date to that one as well, because statute hasn't changed, or I've been notified of it yet.
So are you good whenever you decide to look over those two, to do it just as administration, or do we need our
I think we'd bring that back to you, definitely.
policy committee?
Oh, we'll have policy.
Normally, because we never do use a policy committee, is that just if we're gonna add a new policy instead of doing any type of review?
Well,
change?
because you pay for a policy service, that does make it easy. And most of your policy are tied to statute. So I guess you know when you need it. You know when, oh, we better have policy committee talk about, we've got something that's come up. That's probably probably good that you don't recognize that the policy committee needs to meet frequently. That means we've got a lot of language that isn't working for us for whatever reason.
I don't know, Chris, do you ever remember us adding a policy on our own without the state? I don't either, since I've been on it.
It would be pretty rare, to be honest with you, where you have different language, because of course, any policy that you would want to add on your own, as you'd say, you'd need to run by your legal counsel, and then they would probably write it for you anyway and charge you liability, and then you'd add it, but.
Well, that sounds good to me.
So if I can add review dates for those three, and we'll just let the rest hover as we work through this year. Okay.
Number 11, return to school protocol.
Okay, I'll let Mr. Schmidt and Mrs. Thompson speak a little more to this. Folks, this whole thing has been so much more reactive than proactive. I think we found out early, I think everybody has found out, when you try to be proactive and you create a plan, it's maybe 24 hours to a week before circumstances change your plan. And so obviously everything has been somewhat fluid and reactionary. And so, as we visited throughout the summer, we digested a lot of information, primarily from our health department, and copied and used a lot of some of their terminology and so information from them, because we think they're going to be the ones really with the authority on most things. So we decided to certainly kind of keep it simple from the outset, and do just basically what we think most every school is doing, and you're probably familiar with most of that. So Mrs. Thompson, why don't you maybe share what would things look like in the mornings at the elementary as students start to arrive?
So as it is right now, we have the 4 doors, and Trent, when we were talking at the last meeting, you had mentioned, why would we have them go around to the back building? And it wasn't until later that I was like, well, Kyle said, well, there is a 4th door. And I thought, oh yes, the main door does have 2.
Tried to explain that. But we were dead set on
Sometimes
traipsing
it
around
takes
the
a
backside.
while. Yep. So we are using all 4 front doors. And we'll have 2 grade levels. Woohoo! You just gotta speak slowly sometimes. I'll get it.
She's only been on it for a year.
Eventually, I got it. So we'll use the 4 front doors and have 2 grade levels per door. I have paraeducators covering each door. And so the doors will open at 7:50. Students will enter and they'll go straight to their classrooms. They'll be reminded as they come in to go straight to their classrooms. We will still have our breakfast door, so that door will open at 7:30, and those students will be able to go straight to the bathrooms, wash their hands, then go in and have breakfast. Walking club will still happen, so I'll have someone over there to check temperatures, so that door will open at 7:30. They'll still have their temperature checked and then be able to go into walking club. When they go into the classrooms, the first thing they'll do is wash their hands. And then they'll get started for the day. And so it'll be a pretty normal learning experience. I talk to teachers about spacing desks out as much as they can. some of our classes are rather large, as some of you know. And so 6 feet is just not possible. So in those classes, I'm encouraging outdoor learning when possible. So some subjects lend themselves better to outdoor learning than others do. So teachers will be utilizing that when possible. Otherwise, they'll be inside with desks spread out. All students will be asked to bring water bottles because we will not be able to use the water fountain. We will be able to use the water bottle refilling station, but not the drinking fountain. Let's see.
Do we just have one of those in the elementary?
We do only have one. And so I'm asking that all water bottles go home at the end of the day and come back each day filled. And that way, they're at least starting the day with a full bottle. And so hopefully the refilling will happen maybe a little bit less, especially for our younger classes. They might only make it through one water bottle, whereas our olders might be the only ones needing to refill.
We're looking at adding another water bottle filling fountain over by the new restrooms on the north addition. I mean, so we're kind of looking at that close. I said, y'all get ready. So if we have to, within probably a week or two, unless there's some back order, we could add a second one for that building, which would probably be appropriate.
Well, hey, I didn't know that. Good news.
Yeah.
All right. We have spread out our lunch times quite a bit to make sure that we can sit every other student while we're in the lunchroom. We also have some tables coming from the city. So when the high school is over, they will have the option of sitting spaced outside as well. And when our 5th and 6th grade is there, they'll rotate as to which class is able to sit outside. We have 6 tables coming. So that'll be on decent days. So that gives us the opportunity to space even more. Because we have space for about 80 students when seated every other. Linda and I have been working very closely trying to make sure that we have enough space for her in between classes and enough para support. So I'm giving her another person on the line for serving. And the paras that I talked to today are just on board and ready to do whatever's needed. So they are gonna jump behind the line and help. And then for younger kids, they'll be the ones grabbing the milk, so they're not in that container grabbing the milk. Teachers know more hand washing breaks, more sanitizing breaks for desks and workspaces. Anytime they're rotating to another classroom, so my 5th and 6th grade classrooms, they'll be sanitizing in between. Yeah.
They're still rotating
5th and 6th are, yes. But 4th is out of the rotation, so 4th will be a standalone classroom this year.
So how about you as cooks, do you feel like, I mean, I don't know if you put up any
We did.
plexiglass or you feel like it covered pretty well?
We are not gonna do the salad bar as it was. We're planning, and I'm hoping it works out, we're gonna run the salad bar along the counter. So then we'll fill the trays, and then at the end, they will pick up their tray already filled. They'll tell us kind of what they want on the line. And saves everybody touching and feeling and, getting things that, hopefully it works. That's kind of what it's supposed to work in.
Oh, yes. Do
I
what?
might have missed that.
Yeah, we'll do that at the beginning of the day.
Once they
Temperature
come
check.
in, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't.
And every teacher will also have a thermometer, so it'll save any, we tend to have students wanting to go down to the office for crackers from Miss Patsy. So they say they're not feeling well. So we'll have crackers and thermometers in the classrooms. So teachers will check temperatures. If they do have a temperature, they'll get a mask and go down with a mask on. If they don't, then they'll get some crackers right there, so they can eat their crackers and feel better.
Does that work for you at home, Jim?
So, you'll have to get you some crackers. So hopefully, you know, that will lessen the traffic going into her office and help ease some of the anxiety that was going on there. And just, yeah,
So are they washing their hands? Is there sinks in the rooms?
there are sinks in every classroom.
So they could fill their water bottles there if they had to, right? It's the same
They,
water.
they could,
was
well,
gonna say-
Well, it's
no,
not
for the
filtered,
filling-
but,
Yeah,
you know, the water bottle filling fountains do have filtration system.
Oh.
yeah.
So, and it's colder. I mean, it
Get
just,
underneath of that little,
I don't know
Might
how
be.
big the sinks are.
yeah,
might be a bigger mess on the floor than what.
Yeah.
in the bottom.
we used to have fountains on those sinks, didn't we, back in the day?
So any questions about elementary?
I'm glad you got thermometers for all the rooms instead of just a few for when they come in.
Yes.
You don't chase them down all the time, you think you might need one.
Yeah, that was, well, we seem
We've
to be
got a
getting
couple-
them quite a bit.
We've got a couple dozen of them come through the ESU.
Yep.
And
And
we
then-
did buy some in the spring, way before we were worried that they wouldn't be available. So we bought about a half a dozen in the
Mhm.
spring, and we got another 10 from ESU.
And then Vicki Bartek had a grant that she needed to spend some money on, and so she called and asked what she could provide for the school, and so I suggested thermometers and some masks, so she came through with some additional for us, so.
So is there any way of testing those thermometers that they're accurate? as you go along?
You go to the kitchen.
Throw them together. huh?
I
oven's
I
on.
think we, you know, I don't know. I didn't think we probably would go test them to see if they all work. We're just,
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
Chinese-made product.
We used them during summer school, and they
Or animal trading.
were working pretty good. We did not buy them
Yeah,
there.
I know.
Well, it might be something that it does show up with a fever, maybe check them with a different one.
Yes.
Instead of assuming that one is
Yes.
accurate.
And we have had, you know, a student, for example, that rode their bike to school, to summer school, that had a higher temperature. And we said, well, why don't you wait for a minute, and since you rode your bike, we'll have you wait a couple minutes and see. And just a couple minutes went by, and they were fine after that. So situations like that may happen.
So if kids want to go out of school, the pot hand packs. They go with them,
Absolutely.
walk in like that. should be
Yes.
Nice and warm.
Yes.
Wearing a stocking.
I feel cold.
It's 97 degrees. Take that thing off.
Are there protocols in place then if they do have a higher temperature?
Yes, so temperature of 100 degrees, and they won't be let in the building. So we'll have face masks at every door, and if they have a temperature of 100, then they'll put a face mask on, and we'll have them step to the side. We'll continue letting the rest of the students in, and then once the rest of the students are in, we'll call parents and let that student go home.
Is that considered like an excused absence then, or like how does that all work out?
It's just a
Mark
ill,
Absent.
ill
So
just
it's like
as.
they're sick than like normal,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
anything? Okay.
We might, you know, the health department is 100.4.
Right.
So we're kind of, you know, if we've got a kid that tests over 100 twice, we're gonna send them home, you know, if they're over. But if they're right at that, we might, you know, wait 10 minutes to try them again if they just come over from walking club and they've been exercising, whatever. But at 100.4, that triggers, you're 100.4. You know, that's the standard of the health department. So that's what we're gonna start with, and we'll see how that goes.
Is there are you gonna quarantine the child then if
No.
mom and dad can't get there to pick them up, to drop them
Oh.
off, they went to work,
Yeah.
they gotta come back
Yeah.
and get them, they can't get there maybe right away.
Yeah, we're just gonna set them on the curb. No, I'm kidding. No. So,
Hope it snowed.
Okay.
so the student will go into the nurse's office.
Okay.
So the big thing is air circulation. So you don't want them in a place that the air is going to circulate where others are going to be. So we wouldn't want to keep them in Patsy's office or in front of Patsy's office or in front of the door. So we would keep them in the nurse's office with that door closed.
Okay.
And then once that student is gone, we would need to sanitize that office and make sure that nobody goes in there for about 30 minutes or so.
How many kids will fit in there? Maybe just-
Depends how we stack them.
Perfect.
There's room.
So if we
social
keep them
distance,
standing,
maybe
we could
for-
get quite a few in. If we let them sit, it's gonna be less.
So 10?
No, we probably would only want one at a time in there, honestly. And we're hoping that that's all we would have in there.
Well, I just thought, if you had a family, a good
Yeah.
Catholic family show up and they got 10 kids. And they just happen to all have it.
It's not the 50s.
Oh.
It wouldn't, I guess it'd be one family, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter, but.
We'll have
Right.
some issues that we'll be challenged to deal with, and maybe a
Yeah.
student might have to come over to that, hey, Mr. Schmidt, is there anybody in your room?
Major
No.
overflow.
So we'll
I don't think we want to put two different
We'll be,
families
No.
together.
we'll be
One might have
calling
it, one
the
might
secondary
Right.
person, grandma, and then we'll be calling aunt, whatever, but we have that every year, a time or two or 10, Miss Patsy in particular.
And that's a great point that you made, just because they have a temperature doesn't mean that they have COVID.
Exactly.
Because there's going to be the regular flu going around, there's gonna be lots of stuff going around. So we don't wanna assume that they have COVID just because they have a temperature. So, they would still be able to come back as long as they're fever-free for 24 hours. We would just recommend to parents to monitor for multiple symptoms. And if multiple symptoms arise, then we would recommend that they seek medical advice.
Do you have a form or some information to send home with that student's parents and what's
We do,
going forward?
absolutely we do. From the CDC, they have great printouts for us that we've been sending nonstop. So we've got lots of stuff that we can send home. So yes.
How much time is that gonna take each day to go through all the students?
We'll find out.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty fast, really.
We'll find out. It's about 3 seconds per kid on the 10th.
Right, I did
Seems pretty
encourage.
fast.
Well, and I did encourage parents today that to take a temperature, wait 5 seconds. Because otherwise, we're gonna have too many kids in the hall at a time, and I don't want congested halls. We've got 10 minutes to get kids in the halls, or to get kids to their classrooms, so we can take a temperature and wait 5 seconds.
Okay, I didn't know it would
Take
be
a
that
temperature and-
fast.
oh, yeah,
Are these like
it's-
different kind of thermometers or something?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a infrared.
Oh, okay, all right, they're not your traditional.
No,
all right.
Under the
it's
tongue.
a no touch, yeah.
So if a child tests 100.4 or higher, you isolate them, what is going to be your recommendation for the child to the parents? Is there any testing going to be done through here?
No.
Then who-
Testing, what kind of testing?
Well, are you going to test them for COVID?
That's a
We-
parent's responsibility. So if they're 100.4, now that'll be, we're not gonna report them to the health department, but we're gonna say, parents, your child has a temperature, take care of them. And under these conditions, you monitor for those other symptoms, and then,
You're not going to
seek
require
medical.
a test to get them back in?
No.
No.
So all I do is get below 100.4 and then come back.
No, they have to be below 100 in order to come back into the building, and they have to be fever-free for 24 hours. Now, do we understand that a parent can very easily say, yes, my child's been fever-free for 24 hours, but we would hope that wouldn't happen.
Our teachers are pretty good at recognizing kids that don't feel good.
Yes.
And we don't have to have a kid tell us they don't feel good. Oftentimes, they take their temp, a teacher recognizes, and so we'll be obviously pretty liberal with that, much more so than we would be. Now, is this gonna take more time away from education? Absolutely. We're not gonna be able to maximize the amount of time we have for our content. Right now, in these first couple days and couple weeks maybe, and even beyond, we're gonna spend more time than we think is necessary to get through the lunch line, to get everybody in the building and to where they need to be. And now we're washing hands more often. You know how long it takes a 7-year-old to go wash hands. So our instruction time is gonna be not maximized like it would traditionally, but that's okay. That's much better than the alternative. Where we were and where we just are gonna resist going back to.
Thank you. Do you have
Yeah,
a
you do
report
anything
now?
different, or?
4 of the 6 of you have heard it a couple of times, so. I mean, we'll have 3 separate doors that all our kids will come in, so we tried to limit it to about 50 kids a door coming in the building or less. So hopefully we can get through that pretty quick. And like they said, we'll set kids off to the side if their temperature's high. Now, if they come in at 102, we're not gonna waste any time. We have the luxury, we can turn a kid around and go home, we just have to contact that parent. You know, if a senior shows up sick, we say, you would need to go home, we're gonna call their parent. We sent them home today, just so you know. And so that way they can start monitoring. I talked about in between classes, passing periods. I did make one change with the staff today. When we go from the old building to this building or vice versa, kids going from the old building in here will go outside and then in through the superintendent's door. So if you're coming from this building to the old one, you'll walk by the wrestling room to try and eliminate one little tiny hallway. And we have 50 kids passing through there in a 2-minute span. Just to try and get a little separation there so we're not brushing up against each other and hugging each other walking through there. It's a high traffic zone and it's kind of dangerous once in a while. So hopefully we just have one-way traffic and it'll eliminate that part. Other than that, a lot of it's the same. I did talk to Tammy today. She did have concerns about kids because we would have about 2 or 3 a day come down and say that they were sick to the office. And so I am going to have a little bin put next to the door in the office. So if a kid comes down there, we'll wait for them to come in the office. So we'll have one mask in there so they can put that on. And then Tammy can take their temperature, check on them if we need to call parents or whatnot at that point and do it that way. Just because she doesn't want a kid coming in sick and hanging over her desk and breathing on her while she's sitting right there. So just to try and get a little bit of protocol there. But space and desk out, things like that, talk to teachers about. If you have a group of 7, don't let them sit next to their friends, spread them out. We have some classes of 20. It might be a little bit more difficult, but trying to space them out as much as we can in those classes. So, and we're disinfecting every period. Teachers will have a spray bottle of disinfectant, they'll spray it. Kids will take a couple paper towels, wipe down their desks, throw it away, squirt a hand sanitizer out the door when they're changing classes. So
kids will most likely be assigned a seat every day instead of just coming and sitting where you want.
I told teachers I highly encourage them to use a seating chart, so whether they dictate it or the first day, sit where you want, but from this point on, this is what we're using, just so we have a little consistency in that, yeah.
Kids naturally do that anyway, but.
Yep. They do.
So just, in the high school too, they'll lose instruction time every day, a couple minutes. I mean, but it's just the way it is. These are provided by your local government. So we gotta go just pass those around. They're actually provided to all schools in the state through the local ESUs. Okay, so these came from our ESU. Now, they are the wrong masks. They being the government or whoever, they sent the wrong mask. So I don't know why they're wrong. I just said, they said they're wrong, keep them, we're getting you the right ones. Okay, so what's wrong about them? Do they still work, in quotes? They said, yeah, as far as we know. Well, I know you look on here, it prevents pollens, dust, and smog. This thing probably wasn't manufactured. This was manufactured, I'm sure, before this whole thing. Is it better than nothing? I guess. They're the wrong mask. They didn't say, by God, don't use them. They're not good for you. They're not going to provide some sense of protection when really there is none. I don't know. You're not supposed to sniff it for 24 hours.
That's right.
You didn't read it.
Yeah, 24 hours prior to use.
You was right, you're right, open
How
it
is
up.
that
Yeah, look at that. I know, so
I'm just gonna throw it on.
we're gonna send
I
these
tried to
all
put my
home
nose
with Tim,
over
and
it.
Miss Patsy has to lay them all out so they can all air out, but at any rate, so we're getting another batch of them. I don't know how many for sure they sent, whether it's, because there's 3 of them in here, it says on here guaranteed.
It says
for, what does
guaranteed
it
for
say? 5 years.
Lies.
How'd that work?
Lies.
So, whatever.
Are
I
those
mean,
the same as these?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the
I know
same.
that.
Yeah, so we're shorted one over here if you
No,
want.
that's all right.
So we have these, will we be handing these out to kids? No, but these might be in the office, so you need a mask, here you go. But we have them. I guess is what I'm saying. Most people, if they want a mask, they'll, if we say, you know, if they show up with, they have to be approved through the office, so if they show up with something, Mr. Schmidt's like, no, you're not wearing your Guns N' Roses mask. This is the one you get. They'll say, oh, I'll bring a better one tomorrow, you know, because nobody wants a school issue
There's nothing
anything.
against guns.
They'll just turn
Yes,
around
yes, why would, we would not ban
against
Guns N' Roses, of course not. But at any rate, that's where we are with that. So, I know the big debate is to mask or not to mask, and there's been, I mean, that whole thing is evolving for a whole lot of people, and I've talked, you know, with superintendents back and forth since March, as this has gone on and on and on and on, and it was, you know, well, let's all try to do the same thing, ESU superintendents, conference superintendents, let's be consistent, how are you guys doing, or gals, and how you feeling, and the pendulum has swung really quite a bit from, heck no, we're not doing, especially when OPS and LPS says we're mandating masks, by God, we're just because they're doing it, they, you know, in the rural areas, you know, and things are shifting. I don't expect we're ever going to get a mask mandate from the governor, the commissioner, and I don't think we'll get one from our health department, who would have maybe the most authority to do that. You guys all know, you know well enough to know that they're strongly recommending it, and there are certain protocols that are in place. If you wear a mask, this happens if you get a positive case. If you're not wearing a mask, this series of things happen. Do they have the authority to do that? Yeah, they do. So, you know, I don't know. I think it's probably, well, it's a board decision with it, no doubt, because that's a whole different level of telling somebody they have to do something they might not be comfortable doing, of course, which there would be a variety of exceptions to, whether it be health reasons or just whether they're not comfortable with it, I don't know. So some superintendents were like, I'm not going to kick a kid out of school because they won't wear a mask. And if we had a mask mandate and a kid says I'm not wearing it, well, now look at that position I'm in now. You know, so yes, I don't want to go there and get there and put Mr. Schmidt, primarily Mr. Schmidt, in a position to, okay, we got to kick a kid out of school because he refuses to wear a mask. But as you know, there are a lot of schools that are doing it, that are going that route.
So when them schools that are mandating it, is there a grade level on that, or?
As far as I know, they're mandating them, if you're in school, you wear a mask.
Who's the poor soul's got to try to get a bunch of kindergartners to keep a mask on their face?
Yeah.
They're gonna find out, and you may see a lot of, okay, we're gonna mandate it from now 4th grade on, once they get back to school and realize, I can't do it, as a kindergarten teacher, I can't do it. So,
But you know, take a young kid and put glasses on him, he's 3 years old. Don't take long and they wear those glasses.
I think it comes down to, in a kindergarten classroom, with our class sizes at least, we might be able to have our students social distance enough
better, you know.
to where there can be 6 feet of distance in between them. And in a classroom where you have 6 feet of distance in between everybody that's in that room, you wouldn't need to wear the masks. Now, take that same class and have them go to music or art, and then they might be required to wear them for that 30-minute period when they're there. So I think it would come down to the times of day that they would have to wear them, but then incorporating mask breaks, outside learning, you know, and just making sure teachers were practicing good teaching. But I think one of the big things that Kyle and I were looking at was our health department released something about who would need to quarantine if there were a positive case. And one of the things that it said is if there was a positive case, it says right here, if masks were worn, quarantine would not be recommended for close contacts. Whereas if masks were not worn, then quarantine is recommended. So if I have a class of 23 4th graders and none of them were wearing masks, then I have an entire class that it would be recommended to quarantine. Whereas if I have a class that was wearing masks, I have a class that can continue to learn. That's my big thing. So my own children will be wearing masks. And Jackson's biggest stance is, well, what if I'm the only kid that has to wear a mask? Then I'm the only one that has to come back? Yep. So he's very concerned about having to answer all of the questions. Jackson.
Anybody? Oh, Jackson. Anybody?
Well, in theory, I agree with what you're saying.
Right.
Unfortunately, all summer, we've been playing basketball, baseball, lifting in the weight room.
Yes.
Nobody sanitizes till it's all over. The curve is already by, and there's no proof the mask works. I'm sorry, I've read extensively on it. There is no government study that says this thing will stop COVID-19. There isn't. That's my big thing. I agree. I mean, if something comes forward and we don't look at from this minute past and we look this minute forward, I'm on the same page as you.
Right. I hear you. I do.
But it's just like the mask you got on. You're protecting us from you, but you're
Yes.
not protected from us.
Right. I hear you, but I also know that my sister, who has a heart issue, is a beautician and so was wearing masks to work. Her clients were required to wear masks while they were there. She was exposed twice, did not get COVID either of the times. Her cardiologist told her it was because they were both wearing masks. It's just.
She might have had a good immune system.
Yes,
I mean, there's no right answer. I'm not
Right,
arguing here. I'm
right.
just
You
saying what I
Right.
want to
You
say.
can watch 5 different pieces of news, read
Yes.
5 different periodicals, and go to 5 different health departments,
Yeah.
and you have inconclusive information about a variety of things. I get
Yeah.
it, it's tough as heck, and so is it just the pressure to fall in line with, well, this is just what we have to do, which I don't agree with or like either. Well, we have to do it just because there's pressure to do it, even though we don't agree or we don't believe that it really does what, folks claim it's supposed to do for
So
us.
if your son is the only one wearing a mask and it doesn't protect you from getting it, if the other person isn't going on, he's gonna be in quarantine anyway, isn't he? Unless he's the one that comes down with it.
That's why I asked you about testing, because there's no way to trace unless you've tested.
And the school can't, only a family can go request testing for their kid. And they would notify a school. We've been notified of a student that tested positive. They'll notify school. But we can't.
Would you be comfortable with a policy that would require them to be tested before they come back?
I asked about that.
Okay.
I would.
Then I'll let you take
I
that.
asked about that. We, like Dr. Earl just said, we were notified of a student who did test positive. And so I asked what they would recommend for us in order for him to come to school. I said, should we wait until he has a negative test? And she said, absolutely not. She said, I have people who have been testing for 2 months who are still testing positive. She said, research shows after 8, 9, 10 days, they cannot transmit any longer. She said, that's why the quarantine is set at 10 days. She said, so what she does recommend is, and this is Liz from our health department, she said what she does recommend is after 10 days, as long as the student is completely symptom-free for 24 hours, they can come back, but she recommends that they wear a mask.
I talked to different health departments, so that's North Central. I talked to Northeast Health Department and did get the same thing, because I said, does the student have to test negative or an employee? And they said, no, they don't test them to prove they're negative. And once they test positive, 10 days, monitor symptoms. If after 10 days, you feel, your temperature's gone, your symptoms have ceased, you resume. You don't have to have a negative test to be cleared.
How accurate do they claim either one of those tests are by now?
Yeah, they're
Anywhere from
laboratory.
70 to 98%. I asked that question about false
Positive?
positives.
Both?
70
Both?
to 98% accurate on, so if somebody gets a positive, and she said, there's two different kinds of tests. I didn't understand the lingo or jargon on it, but she said, it's a 98% effective test, but there's this one, blah, 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 and that's been at 70%. So that's still pretty strong, I guess. But, because I did ask about that. If somebody tests positive, do you test them twice, just to confirm and you don't get a false positive? Because once you get a positive, that can set in a heck of a series of contacts and quarantines. So my God, if somebody's, you want to make sure
You
you
go
got
to a link and no
an
one signed up to take the test and not take the test. And
Uh-huh.
they'll send you a letter and tell you you're positive.
Yeah.
I know, so there's all that too, and that certainly, but what can you do with that? That does exist. Unfortunately, we can't use that to say, well, I'm not gonna, accept what you're telling me because you don't wanna have to quarantine this group or that, or,
So is 10 days the requirement from the government? Because I know in some places it's 14.
It's not a requirement, it's a recommendation.
that's from, the government, the health department. So
So
good.
you're not requiring them to stay home for 10 days if they come up with positive. You're just requiring them not to have a fever or symptoms.
If somebody's positive from the moment of their test, 10 days, we won't see them. For 10 days, we will not see them. And after 10 days, they have to be symptom-free, and then they can come back.
For 24 hours.
Yeah. So they're gone for 10 days with a positive test. They're not gone for 10 days because they came in with a 100.4 temp. That we would treat
So
like
once they go
anything
get
else.
tested, they don't have to be gone for 10 days.
Yes.
Correct.
But
And
you
then
have to be below
the
the
quarantine is if somebody was, if they're like, okay, I was exposed to this person, was a known positive, and then, I was told it's 48 hours, it can be 48 hours for the onset of symptoms. Okay, so if you were around somebody on a Monday and they tested positive on a Friday, they would not consider you to be at risk. But if you were around somebody on a Thursday and they tested positive on Friday, they're gonna recommend that you quarantine.
But doesn't that make a difference on how long you wait to go get tested?
It
You might be sick
absolutely
for
does.
5 days.
Not requiring them to get tested.
It absolutely.
We're back to that.
So, it will be a challenge. This is why we didn't want to articulate a lot of these what-if scenarios. Some schools have done that, that's fine. They may find that works for them and they can go straight to bullet point whatever number, and this applies to you, and so here's what we're gonna do. But they may also find that you can't what-if every scenario and try to put it in a big document, a big set of protocols for a return to school plan. Some generalities are good, but what are the circumstances? Let's consult our health department and make a decision about what we're gonna. We can do that lickety-split. It wouldn't take us a couple days to figure out what to do with somebody who has 100.4 temp plus a secondary symptom. Now, we absolutely would recommend, if we've got multiple symptoms, we would like your child to be tested. I don't know of any schools that are mandating testing for kids that have multiple symptoms before they can come to school. I don't know that that's out there. I don't know if that's what I hear Dr. Thor, wanting us to think about.
Well, it's just, you're well covered on everything, Dr. Earl. I mean, you discussed it when it comes forward, and you discuss what you're going to do if you have a positive test. And I'm on board with you for all of that. But if you're not going to require the student to be tested and they come back soon, you're still going to have problems. I mean, that's the weak link. I mean, and maybe there can't be anything about it, but
I don't know if we can require a student to be tested.
That was gonna be my next question.
I don't know if we can't
What if the
require a
parents
student to be
refuse to get their
immunized.
child tested?
Yeah.
Let's say you send a child home with 101 temp. They've maintained a temp for 4 days.
anyway. And parents fear the worst. They don't want to have the kid take the test because they're scared that he might actually have it anyway. And he comes back day 6 or 7 anyway. It's possible he had it, but he's symptom-free now. I mean,
Or less time.
true, you know what I mean, but let's just say he had symptoms, but the parents refuse anyway. I mean, I don't know if we could implement policy, can we, that, to cover something like that, to
Yeah.
force a parent to make them take the test?
Faith
That's a
still
personal rights
exists.
thing there, you
Students
know?
are still entitled to free and appropriate public education, and we can't restrict that without, you know, and maybe this is starting to fall within that, and this is probably a fair conversation to have. And out of 244 school districts, you know, I bet most of them are having that.
Sure.
Just to protect our environment from maybe people who don't have the best interests of our environment at heart. If a fever is one of the primary symptoms, we can monitor that well here. And that's the primary reason we send kids home early from school is a fever. So that's going to be a trigger for, you know, a primary trigger, you know, most all the time anyway. But I can find that answer out, and that quite easily. You know, can we, you know, how far can we go to restrict somebody?
Kid comes to school 3 days in a row and he's got a fever all 3 days.
Well, they're not getting in the door.
I know they're not getting in, but maybe at some point, then after day 3, you need to have a test before you come back. You know?
The frustrating thing to me is, if you treat this as what they say it is, the standard should be a whole lot more than they are right now. And I'd be the first one to lock the damn door. But it's not treated that way. It's half-ass. And everything that we treat at society as a whole is half-ass, which tells me it's not really that dangerous for that reason, because it's not proposed to be that. But, you know, we're stuck in the middle trying to be policy to protect our children. There's nothing we can do about it because the world's treating it half-ass.
Does the state have any numbers on the positives that are under age 18% of the population?
I haven't seen that. I've only seen the worst case scenarios on there've been a total of 10 students out of the 150,000 deaths. There's been a total of 10 that have been primary age children. So when they start talking about, you know, the younger they get, just the less risky it is really to their health, their ability to transmit and so on. So your advocates for opening schools will point to that data. Now, whether that data is scientific and is empirical, which is, it's indisputable essentially. You know, I don't know the number 10 is. We know that there's only been 10, but so, you know, that's the advocates for school, and you guys are familiar with that information that's been pushed out. That, but then it's, if a kid can transmit it, we don't want them taking it somewhere else. It's very highly concentrated. You can't social distance in schools, and everybody knows that. It's just not possible to socially distance. So that's a primary way to inhibit the spread of it. And so if you can't do it, it makes sense to some people. Well, we can't have schools open because you can't social distance. It's impossible to social distance. So if somebody's going to bring it to the school, they're going to take it to their parents and beyond and beyond. And so you're caught in the middle of what to do, weighing those two different things. But I haven't seen the information for sure on positive for 18 years and below.
Let's go back to the student that was tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
Say he's tested positive,
Mm-hmm.
we're not making him stay home for 10 days, he could come back on day 5, correct?
No, the date of his positive is more than 10 days out from the first.
First day
No,
of school.
he will not come back until 10 days after his test date. It will actually be 12 days because his
Okay.
10-day falls on a weekend.
If they test.
Well, this kid's tested positive, so.
Yep, and his parents have already agreed to wear a face mask when he does come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is only if he's symptom-free.
Right.
So then, if he's symptom-free and he comes back to school, does the parent still have to wear the face mask, or is that only during that
The
time?
kid.
The kid will wear
He
a mask
will.
for an indefinite period of time. The student will wear a mask for an indefinite period of time.
So we can make him wear, as a school district, we can make him wear a mask.
We're not making it,
parents are-
that's recommended by the health department.
Okay,
We're just in
recommended,
agreement.
but then but we can't test him?
Exactly.
Okay. I just want to get this straight in my head, because like you said.
A test would be
so-
much more invasive, I think, than
Well, again, that's a personal rights thing.
having a kid wear a.
Well, isn't a mask
So is
personal
wearing a
right?
mask.
It's not
So,
mandatory.
Same thing.
I
Yeah,
agree
so-
with that too, but
That, you know,
you gotta,
it's,
you gotta do it.
Test is a bit of a medical procedure compared to a little protective gear, but, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's maybe splitting hairs, but I.
Sure, I mean, but, you know, you turn that kid away also at the door anyway, so you got a fever anyway. What's to say he's actually gonna go home?
Yeah, there's that.
He might, you know,
Oh,
he
yeah.
might go down to Mitch's anyway and say, you know what, I can go get myself anyway, frozen pizza and some milk and whatever.
Yeah, something
I
to
mean,
eat.
there's so many scenarios to this
Yeah.
that you can't cover all of your bases. All we can do is, like you said, do the best we can anyway, adjust the situation as it evolves, and we're just
see where
gonna
it
go with
takes
that. I don't think any policy we can draft or anything like that will cover everything.
It's just like it's been since March, we're on a 1 week at a
I
time
mean,
scenario, and you adjust as it goes.
Yeah.
As the changes go.
So, we can talk all night about this.
What are, we kind of, when we host an activity, right, Mr. Schmidt? When we host an activity,
Yeah.
how would you like your facilities here to be used by guests?
We mean, how you like to be used.
What do you expect of guests that come to our facility? So if we're not mandating masks from 8 to 3:30, do you want folks in masks when they come to a volleyball game? Do you have to have masks to get in the game? A spectator?
For who we play?
I
No.
would say right now, no. I mean, we're talking
this
about.
area.
that
Play Lincoln
same
High
activity.
or Omaha.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I would say no intervention between fans.
Okay, so can we,
No
we can,
intermingling in the seats.
we can easily, in volleyball, we don't need a full capacity of our gym. We can easily have folks sit every other row. So we make a good attempt at social distancing, okay? And I think that's reasonable and responsible. I recognize when the game's over, what's everybody gonna do?
Run on the
Now,
north.
we are gonna do a couple simple things. You know, our athletes are not gonna come out to the floor and mingle with their parents. They go to the locker room, they go home. And lights are going off, and we're gonna encourage people to exit expeditiously. We don't want you hanging out on the floor. We don't want you hanging out in the lobby. I mean, I love that social interaction. It's a social place here. It's a community hall, but not anymore.
Can
Not
we put up a
during this.
barrier out here between, one of those ropes between the north doors and the south doors, so when you come out,
Mm.
at least you have to stay on this side or that side?
Yeah, I thought about,
It's not 6 feet, but at least
Yeah.
it gives you the thought of what you're supposed to do.
Plainview's fans, we could ask them to use the old activity entrance for entering and exiting, just to separate the crowds. Our guests are naturally going to the main north doors. We can separate our population by 50% by using both of those. Again,
The activities, you mean the locker room.
I mean guests in the main north doors, the
Right.
main activity entrance, and then this old activity entrance, the handicap entrance, could be for our home spectators. We could ask them to use it. It's available. If we can get the more people we can get to use that,
Then
that'll
have to
spread out the
cross.
congestion.
They'd have to
Well,
cross.
that's true.
You'd be better off using the locker room.
Concessions, we're gonna do masks and gloves for the folks that are working
People who are
concessions.
working in the concessions will have to wear masks and gloves. NSA, I mean, they're saying separate concession stands for 2 different towns. I've seen it as far as one school is doing first and third quarter. One team can use it, second, fourth, another team can use it. They're doing that with restrooms. You're supposed to use separate restrooms for different teams. So there's a lot of things that they're encouraging. But schools our size, there's a lot of things you can't do unless we're gonna send fans all the way up to the superintendent's office to use those bathrooms. I could see alternating doors. If you put our fans come in this door and then just duck in the gym and that's theirs, we could have visitors come to the north end. Yes, they have to walk down our hallway, and then you're having issues with them getting in kids' lockers.
They're gonna try to get in the other door too.
But you could still use this.
We could.
I
handicap
think
door for the
no matter
visitors.
what you tell them to do, they're gonna come in whatever door they wanna come in.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
way
you
it's
have to
gonna
go
happen.
in,
They're gonna sit wherever they want.
And they're gonna sit where they want.
they're gonna-
Because they're not gonna know what the rule is when they get there.
It's no different than baseball season, right?
We also had part one.
June 1st, we had a meeting down there at the ball fields, all the coaches, all the members of the ball backers organization, we were told by the city on how we have to space, families 6 feet apart, we couldn't use the grandstand, we couldn't use the bleachers. You know, we're gonna have to disinfect bathrooms every hour, we're gonna have to do this, we're gonna have to do that, and this and that. And by the end, it, right?
They opened it up though, it wasn't because we
Same old.
changed.
Well,
Yeah.
The state
Clubs
opened it
going
up.
on in
still, I mean,
cities,
it
and
was-
like you said, huge tournaments every weekend in the
Yeah, it is.
cities.
All you can do is handle as it comes, Doug.
Okay,
No,
I mean,
that's exactly right.
it wouldn't be too challenging to just to rope off every other. That wouldn't be very difficult to put caution tape on every other. That visual would make it easy for folks so that we still social distance since I hear you say we're not gonna mandate masks to come to a volleyball game. If we social distance, that'll make our health department happy. That one of those primary ways to prevent the spread, we are making we're doing it as best we can. As soon as the bell rings and they go, there's no bell in volleyball, but you understand, we understand they're gonna funnel through, there's just no way to avoid that.
You're gonna ask them to do what you're proposing now, you're gonna ask anyway,
Yeah.
you can't force them.
Yeah.
And there also has to be some personal responsibility on the part of the individual too. If somebody is, call them immune deficient anyway, you know, where they're susceptible to, you know, sickness easily, anyway, they're gonna have to, be responsible for their own well-being. Maybe they can't sit way in the middle of that stand. Maybe they're gonna have to sit off to the side. Or just not come.
Huh?
You have to submit a plan to the department.
I do not, no, I do not. So that's the thing, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it, so that way I can put it into our conference one.
Yeah.
For us hosting stuff. Outside right now, you can have 100% capacity, pretty much everything is free to go. I'm just worried about the indoor stuff.
75% indoor.
75% indoor, which I mean, unless you're at a district final or something like that, you're not gonna hit that 75%. But we won't be switching benches or anything like that. We're gonna keep players separate and keep coaches separate and have those things taken care of.
I guess worry about.
That's what we did for
the rest. You can't do anything about it.
I mean, you're accepting some responsibility when you go to an event. So, I mean, you're responsible for yourself. And you know, I was gonna talk to you guys later. I kinda wanna make an addition with Huddle so we can stream some things. So if we have people that have health issues, I wanna try and stream as much as I can. Stay home and watch it. We'll push out the link to you, but I mean, if you're coming in our building, you're assuming some risks, so, and I think that's just any building that you're gonna go to.
I think if we just put up some signs that say, please social distance, try
And
not
I
to
know-
intermingle, you know.
I feel bad for the schools that say you have to wear a mask for events because the ticket takers that are trying to enforce that, the things they're gonna have to go through. I feel bad for them, I really do.
Yeah, we wouldn't put our ticket takers in that
No.
position.
I mean,
We wouldn't do it. I walked into the Family Dollar today. As of right now, masks are mandatory. Okay, I went and got mine, put on and went in. And there were 5 people, the first 5 people I saw weren't wearing them.
Nope.
So they're, you know, the poor folks that work at Family Dollar, why would it, I mean, so I definitely, you know, excellent conversation. In the sense I get right now is you're comfortable with, you know, yeah, with proceeding and well, to be continued.
Do the best you
Conversation to be
can.
continued.
Yep, do the best you can. That's
There's
all.
20 little footprints down the hallway by the concession stand.
So did they change the bus restrictions yet?
I'm sorry, which ones?
The bus restrictions, now, Bob was here last week and talked to us.
Yeah, there's
It was
just,
horrible.
yeah, it said 1 kid per seat every other if you can. If you gotta sit 2 per seat, same family. We're gonna spray the seats down twice a day. You know, that's pretty reasonable. We decided not to put thermometers on our bus drivers' hands. We just want them to get them here safe, keep their bus clean, get the kids to school.
Yeah.
Parents, you check them. Some of you will, most of you won't. We will. I wasn't gonna have our, bus driver check. So if they get here and they have a temp and a parent has to come from Brunswick to get them, we might say, you should have checked the kid before you got him on the bus this morning.
And
We
they
won't
could have
say
been
that.
fine when they left though, too. I mean,
Yeah.
so how does that work with sports? If you're supposed to be like that when you ride a bus to school, how do you get them to sporting event? We're gonna take 10 buses?
We'll still do our best. We've got a nice big bus. Mr. Schmidt's football team doesn't have 50 kids on it yet. Well, again, we'll do our best.
Who's gonna be our activity driver this year?
Activity driver for football, well, it'll be Mr. Boyer to football.
Yep.
Mr. CDL.
And wrestling, still working on volleyball. I see Bob
Am I sleeping?
drove quite a bit last year, Bob McCabe did.
Not one person like it has been in the past, so for the most part. I
Yeah.
mean, for all activities in general.
Wasn't last year, won't this year. Might not, haven't had anybody step up yet for that role.
Okay, you done?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Good job, both of you, by the way, all three of you, honestly. You kind of like thought this through an awful lot, so more than I can even fathom. So.
I did somebody,
Heather has some statistics she went to work.
somebody asked about cases under
18.
9, okay.
High
so-
school age.
Oh, I thought you said under 10. So I went on our North Central Health Department, and so for Pierce County, 2 of our 22 cases are under 10 years old. And then for all of North Central Health Department, of the 109 positive cases, 6 of them are under 10. So I can look while we're
One of
talking
those
and
2
find
and
out how many.
22 Pierce is our student.
Well, I think some of this is gonna sort itself out. If we have an outbreak here in Pierce County, it starts getting worse, people are gonna wear masks, I think. I mean, everybody will start doing it themselves. We won't have to
Yeah,
mandate it.
Yeah.
So, I guess we got the best plan we've got now, unless it.
What kind of information is released to the public when the kid tests, well, the student tested
To the
positive?
public, none.
Yeah,
I mean,
just that there's
to
a
our
problem.
building and to our stakeholders and parents, we have a plan in place to send out a letter, an email, and a phone call, letting them know that they need to monitor for signs and symptoms.
Yep.
So,
I don't know if like, yeah, grade or anything like that would probably be released. I didn't,
So on our district website, there is a return to school plan, and it lines up with the health department's return to school plan. And it has information on there as to what will happen if there's any positive cases. Right now, we are green because the health department is green. And so it has information as to what it will look like to get into buildings, what classroom teachers will be doing, the fact that kids can't use water fountains, all of that is in the green column. If the
I'm
health.
just wondering like more specifically, I mean, you said something about parents will be notified. I don't know if that'd be.
Yep, so we
like,
have
is
a
that
letter.
High school, elementary wide, is it more?
If it's an
specific than that?
elementary,
depends on the building
Yeah.
that happens in. So
Okay.
we used it as K6 has a case. We're gonna have it sent out to everybody that's involved in that building. 712 is gonna have something sent out. Very generic. You know, we're not gonna be specific. We're not throwing names out there just because we don't feel that's important. It's just a matter that we had an exposure, monitor, and once we make it through a certain amount of time, you guys are gonna be fine. So.
yep.
And you guys were asking about activities. Here's some of the things that they just ask, I'll let you know. They ask, are masks required? Where to know? Mask available, we have yes. Participants masks, we're not requiring them for participants. Required to wear on the bench, where to know? They want to know if you bring your own balls or are score table required, social distancing, if you're allowing a student section, locker room available, number of guests per player, are you taking gate, concession stands, pet band, post-game food for players, we have a no for that. Guest spectators signing a waiver, where to no, streaming games, where yes, and that's about it. So those are the things that they want to be
That's
pushed
the
out
conference.
to teams.
Conference.
Yep, and that's the conference. So right now, I mean, if we're having an event, it's gonna look pretty normal, other than the fact that you're gonna have social distancing. But until something changes, we're gonna try and keep a sense of normalcy as much as we can.
I laugh at the one bring in your own balls or use their balls. Everybody's touching the damn ball.
I say, what does it matter?
Yeah, everybody's touching the same thing
You
anyway.
lean on
so.
each other the whole game, and then you gotta wave goodbye to them because you can't shake their hand.
How's that work for volleyball? If you bring your own?
Yeah.
Keep it on your side of the net.
There's somebody in the middle that catches one throw.
Yeah, switch them out all the time.
Okay, we good to move on? All right.
For the love of God.
Yes.
Action items, discuss and take possible action on approving final reading of policy 205.08, board policy and temporary waivers of MDE rules.
Well, I hope you approve it, because I already put it in your folder for you to add to your policy manual.
13.
I'll make a motion to,
I was just gonna say this is a second reading, so
Yeah.
this is.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of policy 205.08, board policy and temporary waivers of rules.
Second.
It's first and seconded. Krista?
Yes.
Second Thor?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Motion carries. 13, discuss and take possible action on approving final reading of policy 607.10, classroom environment. Same thing, this is second reading.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of policy 607.10, classroom environment.
Second.
It's first and seconded. Wyatt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries.
No essential oils.
14, discuss and take possible action on Board of Education sponsorship of teammates mentoring.
Finally, huh?
Been in education.
Get to listen to somebody else. I'm just going to start. I just want to thank you for your financial support and emotional support for Teammates Mentoring Program in the past. And we anticipate your financial support again this year. And it's really a wonderful program, even though we came to like a screeching halt last year. You know, we didn't get to finish the year. But, you know, your support doesn't have anything tangible. There's no books or equipment. But what the Teammates program provides is hope. That's a wonderful thing for these kids. And relationships, healthy, positive relationships. And, you know, it's something that they can take with them in the future. And at times it can be life-changing. Denise Rodney just talked to me yesterday and said Troy Donner just stopped in to talk to her. She was his mentor, you know, when he was in high school. He wanted to show her his new motorcycle. Well, I thought that was pretty cool. And Sharon Shepard, you know, keeps in touch with Cindy Fluke, and that's been a bunch of years since she's been out of high school. So you just never know how long these relationships are going to keep going, and it gives the kid a positive outlook, hope, you know, and they can have fun together, and it's really neat. I don't know what the program is going to look like this year, if you're going to allow, you know, people in the school or not, but just wanted to thank you for your help, and some of you are mentors, and we just so appreciate it. It's a great program, and for the kids that need it, they need it badly. It's a really neat thing to have. So Casey's going to go into. We didn't have any end of the year statistics because nothing happened at the end of the year, so we can't present you with those. So Casey's going to talk.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is mentoring means adults and strangers are coming into your building, and you know, we don't know. First of all, most of our mentors are older, and they don't feel real comfortable coming into the building. Okay. And so we're going to have to be very creative as to, I mean, it's going to be my job to talk to all the mentors, find out where they are, where their comfort zone is. But some of the things you need to think about, are we going to allow these people to come in and out of our building? Okay, I'm sure they would have to do all the proper protocol to get into the building. Do you want them in the lunchroom? That's where many times the mentors and mentees meet. You know, is this something you want to deal with? Or I'm prepared to look outside the box and find other ways. You know, right now we have snail mail where, you know, the mentors at least send notes and things, but that's not going to do the same as face-to-face. You know, it's not going to be. The Teammates Central is suggesting virtual mentoring. And I'm not real comfortable with that because that just, Teammates was safe because it was in the building, it was in a controlled environment. You put it out over the internet or whatever, and you've created a question mark for safety. So we've got some things that we need to sort through, and you need to decide how you feel about mentors coming into the building, anyone who would feel safe to do that. and what kind of protocol you would like. I'm sure the mask will be necessary and that kind of thing. But I mean, I've had mentors that said, I don't feel safe, and I'm not sure this is what I want to do, you know. So I, right now, am not going to advocate teammates to start when school starts. I want these kids back in school. They need to be back in school, and so I don't want to complicate anything for that process. I don't look to do much as far as getting the teammates' kids into with their mentors until after Labor Day. You know, when I've had a chance to visit with them, you've had a chance to see how school's going to go, okay? And then the teammates board will then get together and kind of sort through some of that. But it is important. Their teammates, they struggled that last quarter of school. We lost some big time. You know, not the kids, but their schoolwork really, really suffered. And mentoring helps that. It's just that kind of extra elbow. How you doing? You know, that kind of thing. So right now, it's you need to decide. We hope you support us, okay? But you kind of need to decide, do you want the mentors coming into the building? Or do we look for other ways? Our high school kids, with parents' permission, can text and they can email, but our elementary students and junior high students are not given that permission through the Teammates program. But like I said, I'm not real fond of giving everybody emails and these kids emailing mentors from home and all of that. They're advocating any of that would be done in the school day, but your school day is going to be full. You just, you know, you're already losing valued educational time. I don't know. So right now, I guess the bottom line is you need to decide whether you want the mentors in the building, and it's okay to tell me no, you know, and we'll look for Plan B, you know, and go from there and find safe ways for these kids to stay connected. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You
Do you have
bet.
to answer to the state, or can you make your own decisions on what you're willing to do here? I mean, is the state setting down what the state mentoring, whatever it is?
They're kind of leaving up to the school district.
Yeah,
Okay.
the school
So we
district
can work it
has
out
the final
between us.
say-so.
You don't have to get an
No,
okay
we follow the district.
by the higher ups.
Mhm.
Okay.
You get the final say-so of what you want to happen in your school. And then we go, and of course, parents. You know, everything has to go through the parents. If we encourage emailing between kids, they have to have parents' permission to do that. And so, like I say, I'm not real happy about involving internet and technology. It's not going to replace the face-to-face. Now, they could do it outside. There are some school districts that are having mentoring time outside, but most of our mentoring was done during lunchtime. And so do you want that extra outside body in your lunchroom? I don't know, you know? So,
One school is actually putting up a tent, and so then that's where the mentors and mentees are going to meet. I think that's a little extreme, but
yeah.
Look at the greenhouse.
How long have you been doing this?
17
How long have we been doing
How long have
teammates?
you been doing it?
Repurposed.
Me, I probably have been doing it for 10 years.
This is our 17th year.
A child feels safe in certain areas.
Mhm.
How would that change by moving them out somewhere else?
We always keep them on school property. One of the teammates' things is that they would be on school property. So a mentor can actually, you know, walk around the block as long as it's on school property and visit. I've done that. I've taken a mentee, and we've gone out and done photography, but we've stayed on school property, you know. So it's that safety net that being in school or on school property, because one indiscretion is going to sink this entire program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's the non-negotiable of teammates, with the exception of the spring game and other very controlled, one time a year local, you know, event that you can do as a full group.
Right.
But that's what makes teammates unique.
Right.
Is
Like our
the
bowling party.
the school-based,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
The school-based part of it. So yes, I get received the virtual mentor matching, you know, information as well from teammates. And so every school district that has teammates, which is a whole bunch, and
Yes,
we're
it
asking,
is
having
a
these
lot.
same conversations, We probably need to pause, just get school started first, just get school started. And then, you know, Casey and Janice will find out of our 32 mentors or
We have
thereabouts.
36.
36, how many would
They're all
become-
not matched though.
Yes. How many of those 36, if we welcome them back, how many of those 36 are gonna come? And is that a part of our decision-making? We're all or none kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe not, the teammates board will be meeting, you know, to discuss
Right.
that. But I'm hard pressed to say, no, we don't want mentors coming in. These people are screened thoroughly, they're committed. Our kids need them now, maybe now more than ever. So I would be hard pressed to say no, but right now, we're not gonna start the year. We're gonna get into school and get a few weeks down the road.
They need school first.
But we can
I
reverse
need
this month or
them,
two.
I need them
Yes.
back in school. That's
Absolutely.
gotta be.
Probably next month. We'll meet before our next board
Right.
meeting as a teammates board, so I can bring back to you, and Mrs. Thompson's on that committee too, so.
How do you think a student would respond if you pulled him out of that lunchroom where all his friends are around you and you put the two in a room somewhere that isn't being used for that meal? Would
We do that.
child
We
walk
have
out?
done that in the past. We used to do that in one of the classrooms just inside the
Quite a
door.
few of the matches do go into another room.
Right, but
You
They
go
like
private
that.
one-on-one.
Then they get one-on-one
The
time.
kid doesn't clam up then because he's sitting there by
That's
himself?
part of that relationship, however they're
the doors
comfortable.
are always open, nothing's ever
They're
closed.
tickled to be pulled out.
This is
Yeah.
where high school mentor-mentees, some of them meet, generally that might be at the friendship tables. But this is a private room, door open, window, you know.
True.
Yeah,
But if they need a private conversation place, they can have it.
right. Most of our high school kids just eat their lunch with their mentor and then return. But, you know, elementary students many times go to an alternate room. But there again, then if they go into that room has to be sanitized and everything once that meeting is done as well. So there's those safety standards that need to be in place too.
Well, and
So
unfortunately, that room across is now being used for title.
that's what I've
Yeah.
heard that it is now being used. So we don't really even have a room anymore.
Not that we couldn't find somewhere
We'd
else,
find
but,
yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
been a challenge, and like I say, for us, our first priority is to get school going, get these kids back in school, find a routine, and get on with the educational process. And then teammates will kind of find its place that is safe. And that's my guarantee, is that I will make sure anything is safe, parent approved, and anything before it's done.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
What do we usually give them? I'll make a motion to approve a contribution of $500. Is that all right with everybody? That's what we've always done. To the Teammates Mentoring Program.
I'll second. It's been first and seconded that we give $500 to teammates. Krista?
Yes.
Next door. Myself, yes. Trent?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Motion carries. 15, discuss and take possible action. Thanks for coming, ladies. You did a great job. Discuss and take possible action on approving boys and girls bowling as a high school sanctioned sport offered at Grandview High School.
You want a bunch of info?
You got it.
I mean, everything on there, they're basically gonna treat it,
Make a motion.
I'm with you, Chris.
I mean, if you guys have questions, it'd be easier to just do it that way.
Have you talked to D&K? I mean, do you have a contact?
I have talked to
with them?
D&K. Randy said he's on board with everything. I'm talking to him about practice time, because I know they practiced one day a week last year. I said if it's an NSAA sport, we're doing more than one night a week. He was fine with that. I made sure to get what nights they have bowling league, so we don't interfere with that, things of that sort. What's it gonna cost to rent the bowling alley? He'll give shoes and bowling balls for kids, so that way that's provided. As a school, we'll provide the uniform.
For away games also? Away games? They can take the balls out of the ball.
Yep, he does that
Who's your
for
coach?
right now, Leonard Reisinger is the one who's completed. He actually just sent me the stuff today. He's done the NFHS courses that are required through NSAA. I sent him the other required courses that you have to do every 3 years. Every coaching sponsor has to do it now. So he's gonna finish those. So he'll be certified and able to coach within a month. So he's I had him in, talk to him, kind of just to see how bowling works and everything that they've done in the past, and to get an idea of who we need to start looking for, getting on the schedule. So I kind of have an idea of where we're looking for who to go against. He has a good idea of how he wants the program to look, and I think it'll be good. I do.
Winter sport, so.
It is a winter sport, so it would start November 16th and go until beginning of March time.
We're gonna have a state tournament then this year, right?
Yeah, that's something that they're looking at having approved. You're allowed 18 competition points, so a duel is 1 point, double duel is 2, and a tournament's 3. So I'm guessing during the week you would have like a duel at one night a week or something, and then you would do a tournament on a weekend.
A lot like wrestling.
Yep, be similar to that. Point system similar to volleyball though, so.
Should you charge people to go watch them like you do?
That's the only thing. He was concerned. Our bowling alley's pretty small, so we got a social distance that.
Two people.
But as of July 28th, yeah, there are 38 schools that signed up, so I don't know what they're gonna do with classifying. I'm guessing they would do 2 classes, an A and a B, bigger school, smaller school, but that's just my guess. I don't know how many smaller schools. That's just an overall number.
Buying just a shirt for a
Just a
uniform
polo.
this year.
Yep, and I was looking at it, they spent about $350 on polos last year for a team uniform, and that was for girls and boys. It's $55 a team to enter an event, so $110 per event that we go to, boys and girls team. Not a whole lot different than a track meet or a wrestling tournament.
Your biggest
So-
expense will be your coach,
Yeah,
which Mr. Schmidt and I talked, and we'll have to get your approval on that with the PPEA about where they would be placed on the extra duty. We kind of recommended not column 1, not your head football, head wrestling, head basketball level, but your head golf, head cross-country level, probably appropriate for your head bowling coach. So that'll be a conversation that we'll have to confirm with the PPEA about where that position will be placed.
So you wanna do a contract on that bowling alley so he doesn't, lock the doors on us halfway through?
that is a good point.
With this owner, we're probably good, but you never know, you're exactly right.
Yep.
I mean, so I did just kind of rough estimate, I mean, bowling will be an expense of $7,000, somewhere about there. By the time you pay a coach, rent, transportation, entry fees. Somewhere about $7,000 a year. Probably less.
Anybody signed up? Or anybody will
Not
sign up?
sure yet.
Last year, what did they have, 8 boys out?
I think they had more girls than boys. I think it was like maybe 5 boys, 8 girls, was
Yeah.
that? Or it could be the other way around.
I think it was 8.
I've got a picture of them after
So
coming
how
over from
many
state.
was on team?
So five participants to have a full team, and then the NSA was looking to approve individual participation. So it'd be like golf where you can participate as an individual, but your team score is not going to be very good.
Okay.
Golf and cross country.
We probably have more state championships in the last 10 years than wrestling.
Well, I know, but everything's new. I didn't know if anybody was going out. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Because that's part of it, you can't dual participate.
It's
When it
gonna
was through
hurt.
the federation, you could do basketball and wrestling and
It's
bowl.
gonna hurt the
Now
boys
you can't,
basketball, I know.
so.
I know there's some numbers.
Yep, you can't dual participate anymore. If you want to bowl, you can't play basketball or wrestle.
Or, yeah.
So, and this could be an annual decision on whether you're going to offer bowling. But once you do, you probably do. for
Well, they've had good numbers for a long time.
No.
Now, I know they lost their head coach, so whether that makes a difference or not, time will tell. Leonard's maybe assisted for a few years, so.
And I would tell you that we did try to find a coach on staff, and we will continue to do that. I mean, anytime we have a certified teacher, if they're interested in a position, if they're qualified, I mean, we would replace a non-certified person. Or we would have that conversation. So that Mr. Schmidt did offer and reoffer to our folks on staff who was interested. And the only person that expressed any interest was Coach Boyer.
He did.
We're not sure he was serious.
Forget that third stage.
This is where real read.
Could bring one home.
I have paint cut for it.
Okay.
It's gonna be a lot less stressful.
Might be.
Make a motion for that?
That's hilarious.
I'll make a motion to approve adding bowling for boys and girls as an NSAA sanctioned sport for 2021 school year.
Second.
First and seconded. Preston?
Yes.
Dr. Thor? Trent?
Yes.
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 Myself, yes. Motion carries. She wanted to coach. She's upset because she wanted to coach.
I'm sorry, I didn't send it to board members.
You didn't tell her she's driving everybody?
That's duties as assigned later. I'll send a text the day before.
Okay.
Okay. Should be able to about skip this one. Activity director report.
Come on, we're just
We already do that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Ain't even ready, look at that.
NSA, like you said, the host schools are the ones that are gonna set the protocols for everything. Member schools decide if games are played or not, so between the two teams that are supposed to play, if they decide to not play a game because of COVID, then the school that's hosting is responsible for contacting the NSA for cancellations, so on and so forth. We met with Lewis and Clark, you guys are all caught up on all that stuff. Fall sports, we did team pictures, button pictures, and senior banner pictures. Gina UTech is putting all that stuff together for us, so we'll do senior banners in the gym again, and we'll have the posters, and working with Brooke at the paper and creating a activities poster with the seniors on it, so it'll be a little bit different look. Fall kickoff, August 21st, we're doing scrimmages or open practices, I guess, that night for football and volleyball, and then the Booster Club doing a little meeting afterwards. We're also going to hand out our athletic handbook at that time and do basically a parent meeting with all parents of kids and activities, just so we can push out that handbook that you guys saw over the summer. The only thing I was going to talk to you about was Huddle. Huddle this year, we spent, I think it was $4,900, and they did run a plan this year that if we were to upgrade to a package, so basically what we have now, let's see, we get football, girls basketball, and wrestling is what we have to pay for, and we get free volleyball, boys basketball, track and field. So if they were to waive that, we would have to start paying for it. But with that, we would also get cross country. You can add speech. They have ag, FCS, all kinds of stuff that you can put in there. It adds Huddle Assist, so they break down and do all your statistics for you for football, basketball, volleyball. And then they have a few other things added in there. And the last one would be the Huddle Focus. So it's a camera that you mount in your gym, and it automatically films all of your games going on in there without having somebody physically film it for you. And through that, you can live stream and hook it straight to your YouTube channel. So we'd be able to stream every event that we had in our Pirate Gym and push that out. So that camera by itself is $3,000, and for that Huddle package, it would be $8,000 is what he said. So the plan that they rolled out this year would be that you could upgrade to that package and not have to pay until next year. So we have already paid our bill for this year, and so everything's paid up, but we could still get all of those resources and tools for this school year. And then next year, we would have to pay that $8,000 bill for Huddle. So that was something that I wanted to run by you guys, just so you were aware that is an option for us. It does eliminate a lot of stress on coaches having to film home events and get kids to do that. And it is simple in the fact that we can stream all of those things as well.
So the cost is for something, you said?
$4,900 is what we paid
It'll be
this
an
year.
additional 8 or go to 8?
It would just be a flat $8,000 total. Then.
So how does one camera get the whole gym?
So it's some pretty cool math. Coach Boyer explained it to me better because his boy works there, but it follows the ball. How they program it, I don't know. So in a basketball game, it automatically just follows it back and forth. It just films the whole thing. And then volleyball, it just films the court. If you do band concerts or anything like that, you're just getting a shot of the floor.
Do you have any control of this? How much?
No. So you just turn it on, turn it off, and then once you do that, it does everything on its own.
So what about the student manager sitting on the bench throwing the ball back and forth like this?
They
Just
get
film
free
him
time
through
to
the
do
whole
that
game?
now.
Well, the camera also think
Zoom
that.
Spent the last 3 hours watching his kids with his ball back. Missed the whole game.
What happens if the events get canceled, we don't have any activities? Is that
That's not
refunded?
gonna happen.
So this
Well,
year
I
you're
guess
talking?
Well, they're saying you're not gonna pay till next year.
Yeah, because we're already grandfathered in, so that's part of the deal, and the fact that we wouldn't have to pay any extra for those things this year. That's kind of the incentive to try and get people to sign up for that.
But we gotta say we will do it next year.
You have
Yeah.
to commit for this.
So
We
you're
can't wait.
committing to next year, is essentially what it comes down to. So,
How long are those programs, the game on YouTube? They there forever?
yeah,
A week?
you can leave them on there as long as you want until, when they're on so like our school one, unless we go in there and delete them, they're on there like forever.
When do we have to decide on that? How long?
I don't know if there's a real time limit on that. I didn't ask him if there was a deadline that we had to decide on it. I just know that we'll have quite a few events coming up here in September. So,
But we're already locked in for this year. Or we
Yeah.
will still get the camera this year?
We have to decide
Yeah.
on what the camera.
we would get it this year if we told him. How long it'd take him to install it and do all that, I don't know.
Get more bang for your buck if you approve it tonight.
We don't have an action item tonight.
What's required for wiring and everything? Is there any added expense to the school to make it actually work?
No, that's all in there. So they provide the camera, hook it up, do all that stuff.
Come work on it if it goes anywhere.
Do all the maintenance on it.
Where are they out of?
Out of Lincoln. So it's all ran through Huddle and everything.
This is nationwide, isn't it? Or is it just Nebraska?
Yep, worldwide.
Which, I mean, we'll get really great service if Power 5 shuts down and doesn't play football, because they won't have all of that to take care of. They pretty much, I mean, they pretty much run the sports world when it comes to that. So, a little bit of a monopoly they have.
Oh, I know it'd get used, that's for sure. I mean, you'd have
Yeah.
grandparents and all kinds.
Video streaming has been pretty common starting over a
Pull up
decade ago.
YouTube on the smart TV at home anyway.
Yeah.
and-
Do you get any crowd noise or anything?
Yep, yep, it does that. I mean, you'll hear the sound of the gym along with it. I think the biggest tool that you get with it is the Huddle Assist, because as a coach, I just send the film in that night, and the next morning it sends back all the stats and it uploads straight to the internet for it and sends it out. So I mean, it eliminates you having to have a stat keeper and doing all that stuff.
So
Just
we
fun.
can-
I mean, you can still come do it. I appreciate it.
We can start jockeying for head coach.
I'm sorry, it does not
For
really change.
volleyball, so let's get it
Virtual change.
So how much are the head coaches
I can
gonna
walk
throw
over
in
and
for
just
this, since they don't have to spend a lot of time doing stats?
Bring them in there.
To be determined.
More training programs.
Can I at least have something to hold at least, and just so I can stand on the side?
I still have plans to do it.
Oh, dude.
Here's the
Okay.
piece
You
of
can go
paper.
sit next to Liz and just watching it.
No, not next to her.
Anyway, we can bring that back certainly next month. But,
Yeah.
So I mean, if we're not filming games until October,
I'll
whatever.
encourage people to come out until things get worse.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting at home watching it. All right, thanks. Principal
Well, shoot,
report.
that's me again. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, and your activities for the next 2 months are in there, a month.
I have one more quick question. If you postpone it or cancel a game because of COVID or whatever,
Yes.
are they allowing you to possibly make it up somewhere? You know,
Yes.
whenever things are over?
Depending on how it all fits into the
Yeah,
schedule.
Football would be tough, but like basketball or something like that.
They're also saying, we're supposed to go play Wakefield some night. If Wakefield has to cancel and we would still be able to play, they're saying we could find somebody else who had a game canceled and play them too, if we wanted to. The problem with football is you have to do that a week in advance. 'Cause I mean, you don't want to just turn around Thursday, they say they can't play, and scrounge up and go play somebody without any prep time, because you're putting kids at a disadvantage, but then you have the risk of injury too when you see things that aren't what you're typically seeing, so.
Okay. Principal.
Technology updates, you guys approved Chromebooks 1-to-1. The company that we went through and ordered, there's about a 500,000 device back order right now. So Tom's been communicating with them and trying to figure out when exactly that's gonna be here and when we're gonna get those. But we do have a plan in place that 9-12 will be 1-to-1. And then we have a cart for junior high, 7 and 8, and then we have devices going to the elementary. I don't remember how many.
Yep, so we have a cart for 4, 5, 6 of laptops. Then we have a cart of iPads for 2nd and 3rd, and then a cart of iPads for Kinder, First, and Media that we'll share. So teachers know that those will be signed out, and that students will be 1-to-1 and they'll need to be cleaned in between. For professional development, we handed out our book for our book study with teachers. We are doing the Energy Bus, which will be awesome. So we started that, I guess, officially today with the handout. And then Kyle led us through some Power School training, just showing them how to set up some grade books. And then throughout the year, our big focus will be continuing our curricular work that we started last year.
But we got English done, and then we're working on math this year.
Yep.
So, open houses, high school, we did on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of last week. Getting paperwork done, going through expectations, talking about school schedule, and really the expectations when they're coming into the building. Elementary is doing theirs on Wednesday, I
Yep,
believe.
so I have it split into 3 sections for the evening. So I have just 30-minute blocks for, it's split by the alphabet. And obviously if families can't come during their assigned times, then they'll come at different times. And then I have short parent meetings, about 10-minute meetings that I'll have during each of those sessions. Enrollment is growing. We do have some families that are choosing to homeschool, but it's been crazy. I don't know where some of these families are coming from, but elementary, it says there that we have 15 new students that I just counted, and we're actually up to 20 new students
3
right
more
now.
today.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll take
They
it.
don't know wear masks, they won't go house.
Could go back on.
Guarantee you,
Who
there's
knows?
some of that going on around the state.
There's
I put drug testing policy on there. That's something that I've looked into just for our activities, and maybe looking into something where we want to drug test kids that are going to be involved in any activity in our school. Number one reason being giving kids something they can stand up on to help eliminate some of that peer pressure that they get from friends to try things or whatever. Them saying, well, I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want sports taken away from me or activities or something like that. Just something to help them advocate for themselves, along with the obvious reasons that if there are drugs in our school, it could help us find them and eliminate them and create some intervention programs there. So I have talked with about 3 other school districts and got some sample drug testing policies. That's something I would have to share with you guys, and something you would have to approve if we want to do it and exactly how we want that to look. But it is something I've been looking into, that I am interested in, just to try and help not just our school, but our community too, so.
And you can only make them take the test if they're in an activity, because the activity is.
It would be random drug testing, so it'd
But
be
for
like.
any student, you can do it if they weren't in an activity?
You can do any student, some districts do that, I haven't gotten that. The 3 schools I've talked to are just for activities, so any school that, any kid that is involved in an activity, their name goes in the pot, but then parents could also opt their kids in if they wanted to, as an option. But I know Central City does school-wide policy, so basically, once a week, you just randomly pick 2 kids, test them. So, and once you test positive, then you just keep testing that kid every time you test, or once a month. So.
Administrator days, so we had online meetings. So the one of the ones that I went to was on behavior needs, and it talked quite a bit about tracking and documentation And then the SAT process, which I don't know if you remember, but last year we talked about the SAT process being one of the things that we brought back in the elementary building. And so it was good to hear other buildings talk about the positives that can come from that. Kyle, do you want to talk any about that, or just the podcast one that you went to?
Yeah, I sat in on Shattern High School, and they use their social media and do podcasts and social media. And one of the things, they talked about things that you wouldn't really think they would talk about. They brought up some pretty serious stuff in talking about how kids should treat each other, and going as far as if there's sportsmanship issues at a game, they'll do a podcast on like a Wednesday morning and just talk about what's good sportsmanship. So as things come up or things need to be addressed, they use that platform to reach all of their stakeholders and talk about expectations and go over a few of those things. So that was a pretty cool one. And then I also sat in on a work-based learning. Basically, it's like Fridays at Wayne State or Fridays at Northeast, where kids can go there for the Friday and take college credit classes, or they can do a work-based learning where they find a job in the field they want to go into and they shadow it or work there for a Friday. And so Osmond does that, Bloomfield, Bancroft, Rosalie, Battle Creek were the 4 superintendents that were talking about it, and basically how that looks different between each district and what their expectations are of it. So that was kind of cool to sit in on. I think it's something that would fit our community, getting kids involved and also kind of getting them an idea of what they want to go into. So.
Give up on the Watson building.
Haven't talked about that in a long time. It's getting cheaper.
Yes,
It's gotta be. Just keep holding out. That's
keeps falling down.
good negotiation.
There's less windows in it.
There's gonna be less of it. The building's cheaper, but the repairs are drastically higher.
Okay, superintendent. Oh, I had a question on
Yep.
the kids that are new kids. Are they all in the same class? Or it's already full, or are they spread out?
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. It's, you know, they tend to gravitate towards a couple of grades.
That's where they're at.
Not in 6th grade, but poor Mrs. Moret is getting full. So she, I believe, is at 30 now. Our 6th grade's at 28, I believe. So they went down a little bit. Actually, I think she's at 29 now because one of hers went to homeschool. But our 1st grade that we double tracked is at 32.
Good move.
Good move, yes. And then our kindergarten, I believe, is at 31. So it's awesome to see those numbers.
It's our highest number since 2013. That's the last time we were at 350.
And our preschool is, so it's been at, she said 10 and 10, so she's at 21 this year, so she's at 10 and 11. So it's good.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Superintendent.
I don't know that I need to repeat it, really, anything that you can see right there, quite honestly. We did replace one more paraprofessional since last month. We hired Danny Steincross, who's been a teacher at Zion and Pierce for quite a while. She's a certified teacher, so we hired a certified teacher to fill a para role. So that's awesome. We can use her then as a variety of needs. I mean, she can sub on any given day if we need her. You know, we'd lose her para services, but we would deal with that if we had to. So, so our staffing is complete again, as I say, because I said that last month. But you know, other than that, well, our kids, speaking of Zion Plainview, they're not coming over for lunch anymore. We're taking lunch to them. That's for convenience to them. And also just we need to have less exposure of their kids to ours and vice versa. So we're going to try that. That might end up being a permanent thing. I don't know. Miss Linda and her crew are going to make a whole lot of different things happen. And one of them is a lot, you know, anywhere from 10 to 12 to 15 or whatever to-goes every day, plus salads. They're going to get portions of salad, so they're not going to miss out on that. So the Zion families, and that was approved by them before they came to us. I suggested that to Dawn. So Bob will deliver those, and this will be more convenient for Bob. He doesn't have to go get them in a bus, bring them over here, wait, take them back. So his time would be more efficient for Bob as well. So Our custodian, so Mike, I'd like to maybe have you call them out maybe tomorrow too, because this whole building was an absolute wreck, and they had to clean it at least 3 or 4 times. They clean it, it get dirty, they clean it, it get dirty. I mean, when I looked at this room about a month ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I would hate that. And so they cleaned it, they painted, I mean, it looks bad. So, and Tracy Western is the para who spent many, many days painting. I offered that out. She was the one who took us up on it, and she faithfully and dutifully for over a month came and did the red highlights and the red painting. So your custodians and, well, all your people have done a terrific job, really. But and then we did have our foundation event, our alumni event. We had our largest event so far out of 3 years. That raised about $5,000 a year. We started offering scholarships. We're going to increase that easily, maybe double what I don't know, but we now have a pretty nice bank account. So we can start really offering some nice scholarships for our seniors, and so the Plainview Education Foundation will determine that. But it was a nice, really nice, good event. We honored Mr. Canuck at that. I anticipate maybe we'll get something in the paper. I got pictures late to Brook for last week's paper, but we honored Mr. Canuck. So he stood there in front of 100 golfers, going all the way back to Knapp in 1970 to a 2019 grad, and everything. So that was a nice way to start that as well. But so that's a good event that's well on its way to becoming a nice tradition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the presidents now. I have I don't know what the word is, but he sent out those pictures of the track. I still haven't seen them because I don't have whatever I gotta have to see the pictures. So maybe all you guys know how to do that stuff.
I didn't see them either.
So
I couldn't pull them up.
I would appreciate it if we stick to the school website, or not school website, but the school board email.
Yep.
And just send stuff to us on that. We all get that. Just take the pictures and email them to us. When you want to send
I
stuff.
put it on Google Doc.
Was it a Google Doc? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Or just a PDF? Just turn them into PDFs.
yep, can do
I
that.
can't keep up with all you guys' new fangled stuff. My son gets tired of helping me. So I personally would appreciate it if you would do that for me.
I can do that.
All right, thank you.
Tom would too.
Yes, yeah, Tom made me say this. So, okay, and I would like to go into closed session now with just our board. So the rest of you, if you want to go, I'll make this motion. And when we come out, we'll just note the time and we'll get it to you. Let you know.
Okay.
So
Is there any
it's just
specific
gonna be the
reason that you would
regular.
like to give?
Gonna be the
or
regular,
general
I'll
reason?
make this motion, I'll make a motion that we enter closed session for the purpose of the no, that's not, evaluation of job performance of, no, that's not. We're gonna go into closed session, just our board, we're gonna talk about how we may wanna handle things in the future with this COVID thing. Just, if stuff pops up, how we wanna,
No.
Second.
second, there you go. First and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Bail you out.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we're going to close session.
I didn't know if he was done yet.
Nothing's gonna be decided, we're not making a decision.